Picked up at a party, he was locked in a cell and left in solitary, hands cuffed behind his back. There were no lights, no food, no water, no bathroom.
I didn't sit there quietly. I was kicking the door, yelling.
He saw moving shadows through the slit under the door, but no one looked in. He was ignored. 4.5 days later, the door opened. Hallucinating, dehydrated, but alive. Chong later sued and won.
DEA apologized to Daniel, they paid Daniel a substantial settlement, and they made administrative changes. The only other thing that is lacking is appropriate accountability.
Well, that will pick up from there. That was a report from the ABC affiliate in San Diego, California, exploring a case from back in 2012 where government employees, quote unquote, forgot about 23-year-old college student Daniel Chong. He was left in a cell for days, and that is where we will start our roundtable discussion this hour. Let's bring in attorney Mark Meckler. He's president of Citizens for Self-Governance, and Mark also has a new piece out in the American Spectator about this same topic called Left to Rot by Government Employees. Mark, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us why Daniel Chong has kind of been, embodied this discussion we've talked so much about criminal justice reform in this country.
Well, first of all, I think we have a society where we've over-criminalized everything. There's a book out there that describes how each of us commits at least 3 federal felonies a day. We have no idea. We don't know what the laws are. We don't know whether we're violating the laws or not. And they're used in a discretionary manner to abuse our citizens. This is one of the most egregious examples we've seen. But in the end, I think the biggest problem is that the government officials who do these sorts of things, they are immune from personal liability. So while the government paid Mr. Chow a substantial settlement sum, that sum comes from my pocket and your pocket, the pocket of innocent citizens who are abused by the system. It doesn't come from the government officials who are ultimately responsible.
And now we look at this case with DEA and Mr. Chong here, but this is also seemingly the case when you look at the VA medical centers across this country, when you look at the IRS. It seems that this might be a good, way to personalize a story with Mr. Chong, but this is rampant throughout our government bureaucracy.
It is. This isn't the exception. This is the rule. Citizens face this kind of abuse every day. We see property seizures. We see individual police officers acting poorly. And again, I'm not trying to impugn every government official or the system at large. I'm impugning the system where the system works in a way that government officials who do abuse their authority or do very bad things are protected from consequences of their abuses by the system.
And one more thing we want to follow up on. You look at this case, and then on the other hand, we look at Baltimore, where there's another debate going on where some say these police officers were charged too quickly and that these charges won't hold up and that they're being made an example of. On the other hand, a lot of folks say they're not being tough enough on these police officers. What say you, Mark?
Well, I think that story does fit perfectly into here, and I think that you have a state attorney there who has overcharged from everything I can see, and I do. My family has a law enforcement background. I am an attorney. I can't imagine a murder charge being supported under this set of facts. It was done in order to quiet mob violence that was going on in Baltimore. That's a very bad thing. And again, this state attorney will not be held responsible for her actions. While she may not get the convictions she wants, while there may be consequences to that, she's clearly overcharging. She's clearly acting in a political way, and there is no mechanism whereby we can hold her personally responsible for those bad moves.
Mark, before we go to the next topic, real quickly, we've been talking a lot about what's been going on in Baltimore and with police officers, and you kept bringing up there's something wrong with the system. So what in your mind needs to happen to change the system?
I think the biggest piece is just dealing with the size and scope of government. There's a culture in government today in America that tells the government itself, tells itself this story all the time, that every problem that they see in society can be fixed by more government, more laws, more penalty. That is not how you create a civil society. A civil society is a cultural issue. It's not a government issue. We have to take the focus off growing government and penalizing everything to creating a civil society.
So, are you talking about checks and balances?
Well, I'm talking about checks and balances, but I'm talking about ultimately our organization is called Citizens for Self-Governance. Key is self-governance, is to teach people from a very young age that they're responsible for their own behavior, that their neighbors are responsible for creating a clean, safe, quiet neighborhood. Cities are responsible, counties are responsible. We don't need to federalize everything. We don't even need to have state penalties for everything. Folks need to be responsible for themselves. And the bigger government gets, the more we rely on the federal government or big agencies to maintain or create law and order, the more we're going to have an over-criminalized society where we're going to see these sorts of abuses.
Okay, real quickly, we only have a few more seconds, but I want to talk about Media Research Center. They did an analysis of evening news last month, and here's what some researchers found. They found the majority of nightly news coverage focused on allegations of police misconduct. Out of all the top stories, the major networks covered ISIS at the very least. What does this say about our culture? Real quickly, we've got about 10 seconds.
Well, it shows a bias in our culture against law enforcement. I'm not against law enforcement. We have an existential threat from ISIS and from radical militant Islam worldwide. Our focus should be balanced in that direction and not on abusive law enforcement. By and large, law enforcement are good folks trying to do the best they can under difficult circumstances.
Well, Mark, there's one more thing we wanted to ask you. We got a short commercial break coming up. If you could stick around, we're going to talk about another invasion, perhaps, of our privacy. These cactuses out in Arizona with cameras inside of them. What does this say about our society? Mark Meckler hopefully will be coming back with us right after this. All right, we're going to pick back up with our roundtable discussion and Mark Meckler, who's joining us via Skype. Mark, one last topic we want to discuss as we continue to talk about the invasiveness, perhaps, of law enforcement, not just on the local level, but on the federal level. One town in Arizona, I should say, has a few more cacti today, and they have come to the attention of folks who live in that particular area. Let's take a listen to one of those concerned citizens.
Does that really look like a saguaro cactus? Golly.
So what's the reason for the fake cacti filled with cameras? Town manager Kevin Burke says the cameras are strictly license plate readers that are being installed at 11 different places throughout PV.
All right, so that's the city of Paradise Valley, or the community of Paradise Valley. Mark, these cameras are watching license plates, and we understand the concern here because we have this immigration issue in our country. But are you concerned about the Big Brother aspect of this?
You know, I am. Ben Franklin said those who trade liberty for security will have neither and deserve to have neither. And my daughter right now, she's a junior in high school. She's a national level debater. She's reading 1984, and she told me the scariest thing about reading the book is it seems to have come true. And so I just question the idea of having security cameras everywhere, all over the country. They're scanning license plates. I also question the constitutionality of this because they're scanning plates of people who've done nothing wrong, have committed no crimes. There's no reasonable suspicion. I don't even think the government really has the right to do this, and I think we should be concerned about living in a society where this is done as a matter of course.
All right, Mark Meckler, thanks for joining us. And that Ben Franklin quote is so poignant nowadays when you look at this with the NSA and all that other stuff going on there. We'll have Mark back to talk about those issues and concern our civil liberties.